swag out there and boss. Look,
And welcome to another episode of the Soto and Geek podcast by Webster Style, where we talk about bow ties, comic books, and everything in between. I'm your host, Webster Style, the man, the voice, the fragrance, coming back one more again. And this episode is entitled The Circus is Calling, and this week's download fits right into that theme, as it is a take on a story which we all know. We've all seen many versions of it, but this time they took it, they tweaked it, and they made it Souls-like. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I'm talking about The Lies of P on the PS4, 5, Xbox One, SX, PC, and Mac, and it's also on Xbox Game Pass as our download of this week. Now, Lies of P is an action game from publisher, developer, NeoWiz. It is a thrilling Souls-like that takes the story of Pinocchio, turns it on its head, and sets it against the darkly elegant backdrop of the Belle Epoque era. I know I said that wrong. Oh, wow. You are a puppet created by Geppetto, who's caught in a web of lies with unimaginable monsters and untrustworthy figures standing between you and the events that have befallen the world of Lies of P. Now, I referenced the circus part because if I remember the Disney version of Pinocchio, there was a circus as well as the whole kids and turning to donkeys, which is actually quite scary as a youngster if you think about it. But I am not I wouldn't say fan of Souls, the Dark Souls games and the sort of gameplay that is spawned from it. It's just something that I've never really dipped my toe into. I've played some of the Jedi Survivor. I think that's the first game, was a Jedi Outcast. I forget whichever one was in that series. I purchased that very cheaply and played a little bit of it. And I know that takes some of that Dark Souls inspired gameplay to heart with his battle system. But I've played a little bit of Lies of P, and I have to say, just visually, it's a beautiful game. It is. I love the setting. One of the things I love about gaming right now is when they take things that we know and twist it to make something new and innovative, and to set us down on a path in the video game world and storytelling that we haven't seen before. And so far, during my brief playthrough of Lies of P, I always want to say Life of P, but it's Lies of P. It has been an interesting game. I understand both why people find this sort of gameplay or style of game to be very satisfying, but also very frustrating at the same time. So I definitely recommend Lies of P on your system, especially if you got Game Pass. Check it out. You got nothing to lose in that regard. So that's my take on Lies of P as our download. Next up, we have my interview with the lovely Avery Jane. It was such a pleasure talking to her a few months ago, and it's funny because the actual recorded interview is like 40 minutes or so, but we talked for like another hour outside of just what we recorded. It was such a pleasure really talk to her, getting to know her. And one of the most curious things I learned about her is that she is in love with the circus and is training to be a fire eater. If you follow her on Instagram, you'll see some of those videos there. So we talked about her love of the circus, her life as a ballet dancer, as well as, of course, the life and times of Avery Jane in the adult industry. So here we go with our interview with the lovely Avery Jane. We're here with none other than the award-winning Miss Avery Jane. Avery, how are you doing today?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
I'm doing very well now that I'm talking to you. One of the things that I've just being able to converse with people, there are a couple of people that were on my list that I really wanted to get. You and Carmela were pretty much 1 and 2. So now that I've gotten a chance, because I met you guys at Exotica. And I really enjoyed the conversation. And when you really, really like people, like, I want to know more. I want to talk more with them. And you were definitely somebody who I wanted to talk more with. And especially after I started following you. And well, we'll get to some of the last couple months as we go on. But as I started to follow you, I really enjoyed how you presented yourself, regardless of the context of, the sort of industry that you're in. Some people like presented yourself, but no, it's all about how you carry yourself. But also, I like the fact that you speak up for yourself as well. And that is one thing I really admired, especially with the last few months, really speaking about, hey, these are the things that are going on. These are the things that we need to address. At least these are the things that have happened to me, and I'm not going to stand for it. And I know in this sort of industry, entertainment in general, it's very easy to get blackballed when you start opening your mouth. So I know that it takes a lot of strength and a lot of courage and a lot of confidence in yourself as well. So that's something I really admired about you and seeing you put forth in the past couple months.
Thank you. That is some really, really nice acknowledgement and validation. So thank you for.
You're very welcome.
Listening.
You're very welcome. So let's talk about one of the things that I guess once I learned this, I guess I'm not surprised following you. You've done ballet pretty much your whole life. Is that correct?
Yeah, I want to say for about 20 years.
Okay, what that mindset of being a dancer, and I'm sure that plays into the actual, the stripping part, pole dancing. I'm pretty sure that plays into that. But how does that mindset play into performing on camera?
Well, I grew up having to perform for an audience my whole life. And sometimes that audience was live. Sometimes that audience is a camera. It's a recording. It's a dance recital DVD. It's for dance competitions. It's, everything gets filmed. So I think I kind of just have a decent awareness of my own body and how I'm using it, and like spatial awareness to the camera, right, and playing to the camera. All those years of dancing really, really just helped me to like be confident as a performer in any aspect, like no matter what I am performing in. It definitely just taught like body confidence, body awareness, just awareness of self, of my physical body. So yeah, I hate to make the joke because my mom hates it, but I'm always like, all those years of ballet really, really did help me in adult world.
I'm sure your mom's like, this is not exactly what I had in mind for the ballet. But you know what? Is the one thing I've learned as well. There's so many things that you learn as a child and you grew up doing that translate into the adult world in ways that you never expect them to.
Always, with ballet came a lot of discipline. You have your very strict and straightforward instructors, and it's a lot about discipline. So I think that kind of carried into adult work too, where I do understand in-person settings, the art of discipline, observing, listening, following instructions with what I need to do, knowing my body and injury awareness. When it feels like an injury might come on, you can kind of feel beforehand. So right. Yeah, ballet, it helps a lot. It helps a lot. And I point my toes. So
I really, that aspect as far as knowing your body and injury awareness, I have watched a lot of interviews in preparation for all of my interviews in general, and hearing some of the stories, even some of the things that get suggested as far as how especially the female performers hurt themselves and injuries happen. And, it's, your field is definitely one where you really need to understand your body. And I think most people in general don't really understand or more importantly, listen to their bodies when something is wrong. And you would think we're a field where you are, pretty much using your body. Your body's your income in many respects. You might want to sit down and listen instead of being on a go. But, that's definitely something I'm pretty sure that gives you an advantage in what you're doing. Also, how you move within the industry as well.
Oh, yeah. A lot of people think that it's just like sex. You just come in, have sex. It's a great time, orgasms galore, and then you go home. But we typically do tend to do a lot of like physically taxing stuff. And, a shoot can last for hours considering we're taking pictures.
Right.
We're taking pictures just of us. We're taking sex pictures where, you got to hold yourself up in some weird positions and make sure the camera catches it. And it's like hold and stay there while we get the pictures. It's a lot of maneuvering. And so, it really, really does help to be able to listen to your body, understand like what's happening, what might be about to happen. Especially for myself, I do a lot of like extreme content and a lot of extreme scenes.
Right.
So it's very, very important to kind of trust in my body and know, oh, this feels a little funny because it's going to feel that way versus this feels a little funny and I can tell this is heading towards injury. I have to stop now and adjust. And I do a lot of anal content that requires a lot of stuff with what you're putting into your body, how you're treating your body. I have like a vitamin regimen. It's just a lot of, care. And, I did have to work on that though, because I have a decently high pain tolerance, I will say. Sometimes it's hard for my brain to register even when I'm being injured because I feel pain differently sometimes. So I have to be really, really on alert and aware of my body and think my brain's not actually telling me that I'm getting injured, but I'm aware enough to know, this needs to change and be adjusted because I might not feel it now, but tomorrow I will be injured if this keeps up. So I have to be very, very aware because sometimes things are hurting me and I'm enjoying it. And I have to realize just because it feels good does not mean that it's good for your body.
Right.
So, yeah, a lot of that.
I understand. You talk about more some of your extreme content. Does the extreme part of you come from, say, your love of circus and, well, maybe not the clown part, but at least the sort of high-flying nature of the circus?
I'd say so. The way I would describe it is, okay, so there are people who are like adrenaline junkies, and in a way, I'm kind of like that, only I like to call it an intensity junkie. I just like any experience that's like intense, out of the ordinary, just, visually stunning to see. So that's probably why I enjoy doing like hardcore content as much as I enjoy like circus life. Right. I tell everyone, if money wasn't an option and I didn't have to work for basic necessities and like you could do whatever you wanted, I would run away to the circus because I just, the visually appealing of seeing sword swallowing and, fire eating and glass walking and the trapeze, like all of that to me is mega intensity in such a performative, like flashy way. So I'm really, really big on stuff like that. I'm big on like intense performance art, just visually like intense things. But I won't necessarily say like, adrenaline junkie, because like I won't go snorkeling. I'm not going bungee jumping. But I'll do like a 9-guy gangbang and just like I'll go to like sex parties and just do like wild stuff there because I'm like, to me, this is adrenaline. Like this is intensity.
Right. Understood. Now, you talk about the circus, and I brought up the clowns because I see that you have affinity for clowns, but that made me go to another place in my head. You're also have you shot a horror movie? You guys are working to shoot a horror movie? Slasher flick?
So we have an Indiegogo campaign up right now for a horror. It's like a crossover horror porno film, and they've got on board like a lot of great porn performers to be in it. So right now we are currently like in the campaign funding process to get it off the ground and see if it'll be a go. But it is a clown horror film too, so I was like, oh, that's perfect because I love clowns. I have a weird thing with I have a clown fetish, I guess we can call it. Yeah, I just love clowning. I love anything having to do with clowns.
Okay, so that leads me to this question, or these questions. Have you seen the Terrifier series, and have you seen Killer Clowns from Outer Space?
Okay, you're gonna hate me for this. No, I've seen neither.
Okay,
I'm
those
not
would definitely
person, like pop culture too much. Like I don't watch a lot of movies, not a lot of films. I'm weird in a certain way with things like that, but are they things you'd recommend?
Well, yes, those are clown horror movies, so that's why I asked the question. I have not seen the Terrifier films. I've heard they're good, especially the second one is better than the first. And Killer Clowns from Outer Space is an all-time cheesy horror classic. I love that movie. It's from like 1988, 89. I forget exactly when, but it's great. You'll love it. It is so cheesy and corny. I think that's when you're definitely like. I haven't seen a Terrifier film, so I can't recommend them. But I've heard, especially for sort of horror slasher, like that's definitely something that people like. So it may be something you will like as well.
Okay, I have heard a lot of people talk about the Killer Clowns from Outer Space. I think a lot of people have referenced that one to me. I'm boring. I've just seen it. I've seen all the It's, the OG and the new ones. I'm a fan of Pennywise. I love him as an entity.
Understood. Well, you can't go wrong with Pennywise. Either incarnation, the Tim Curry or the Skarsgård one. You can't really go wrong with either one of those. It's such a classic, iconic horror villain.
So good, so good.
So let me ask you. So you're dancing. You go into the world of stripping. You go from stripping and pole dancing to cam work, then to creating adult content, both personally and with companies. Was that a natural progression for you?
I honestly won't say it was a natural progression, just because starting out, I was decent enough at webcamming, although it wasn't my favorite. I didn't do it too much. I didn't do it that often because I didn't quite. Back then, when I was younger, I was more outside. I was like an outside person. Now that I'm older, I'm like, oh, wow, webcamming. That sounds amazing. I need to get back to webcamming full time because I like to be in the house. Right. From the camming and then to stripping, I always kind of viewed myself as the underdog because I feel as if I was treated as such. Like even with a dance background, I'm rhythmically like capable. I'm a very good dancer. But even stripping was tough to even break into for me because a lot of clubs didn't even want to give me a chance. They'd take one look at me, my body, how I look. And we're just like, no, and so I was hitting up clubs in LA constantly trying to audition, going with friends, trying to make it work. And it took a while before a club would even like let me work. And I remember even when that club hired me, the hiring manager even said, she was like, wow, like you did way better than I like thought you would. And I was like, why would you look at me and think, that I couldn't? So I always kind of viewed myself as like a little bit of an underdog. And even when it came to porn, I started out making content independently because as far as I was concerned, I was like, I'm not a mainstream girl. I'm not a mainstream porn girl. I don't have the look. I don't think anyone would give me a chance. But I told myself, I'm going to do it anyways. I know it's not meant for me, and someone that looks like me is not supposed to make it in this industry, but I'm a brat and I don't take no for an answer. And, I had people in the industry tell me I would never make it. I'd have a hard time finding an agent because I was too fat. Like, I have a gut, so I would never shoot for companies. Like, I was told these things by my peers, and, I said, oh, bet, like, challenge accepted, like, watch what I can do. And so I just kind of went in with the goal of like, I'm just gonna do what I do and do my thing and make my content and just try to prove myself to people that I can do this. Mm-hmm. And if mainstream companies won't book me, I'm just gonna make my own content that looks high level production quality. And I'm just gonna, stick to the grind and do my job. And eventually I was able to save up enough money from content to get a boob job, and that was it for me. Like that, once the boob job happened, I got an agent, started shooting for companies right away. Like the boobs changing my body took me to that next level. So I can't really say it was a natural progression because I literally had to like surgically alter my body, which I won't say I did it because of porn. I'd always wanted a boob job since I was like 16 years old. It was just a thing. I wanted perky boobies. And finally, porn gave me a rational excuse as to, this will actually like benefit me career-wise now. Right. Yeah, it's an investment for work. So now I had an excuse, like a valid excuse for the boob job other than like, I want new boobs. And making content gave me the ability to be able to afford this thing finally. And so yeah, once that came along, that's when the mainstream porn career happened. And so I had to work hard and grind for that, like against the odds, against so many people telling me like, you could never, you can't. I'm like, I don't know what that means.
Right. You bring up a lot of points in that, particularly body type. And I guess let's go back to the last couple months. And I remember it was one thing specifically you referred to as far as the title of a scene you did. And I believe they referred to you as chubby or something to that effect. Mm-hmm. Which when I saw it, I'm like, what? Huh? I mean, you're not a little girl, but you would not be classified for most people as chubby in that regard. So I thought that was really strange. But with that, let me ask you, you talk about, you're not a mainstream girl. As far as your look is concerned, you have tattoos, I guess the breast implants, did change your figure where the optics of what, say, consumers are looking for would definitely want. But how has that played a part into how you're seen in the industry, the fact that you're not a mainstream girl, that you're a bit of an alternative? And I'll come back to the next part of that question after you answer that.
I'm sorry, one more time.
Okay, I'm sorry. So how has, I guess, your body type really impacted you in the industry? You're more leaning alt, especially, you're looking at tattoos. You are a woman of color. You are a woman with behind and thighs. You do not fit that perky, tall. You don't fit the quote unquote bimbo aesthetic of of what you would think of an adult performer. How has that impacted you, especially since you've gotten to work with some of the larger studios and companies now? How has that impacted you in what you've been able to do? And also, how has that impacted how you've been perceived as well?
Right. So, I mean, I guess probably a bit of good and a bit of bad. Already it affects you to be a Black woman in this industry. Mm-hmm. I know a lot of people get uncomfortable talking about it, hearing about it, but I get uncomfortable living it, so I get to talk about it. It's harder for us to get ahead in the industry, purely just based off of the workload. A lot of people don't want to shoot ebony, or, you know, they have their one site directed towards ebonies where they shoot, you know, one scene a month. So that's 12 scenes a year that they're putting out on the ebony site. And out of those 12 scenes a year, when you have, you know, 100 or so Black female performers actively working, who gets the call? Who gets those 12 shoots throughout the year? You know, like, there's not as much work for us already because a lot of the companies don't like to focus on us. My body type is, I don't want to say it's an anomaly, but I'm very unique in the way that I look currently in this industry. There aren't as many thick Black women currently active as there are, you know, the more petite, thinner women. And so it kind of, you know, it teeters for me. A lot of people look at me on film and camera and view me as a BBW, which, you know, I kind of have talked on that a bit, where I talk about how there are women with my same exact body type or larger than me that don't get classified as BBW ever. And sometimes I think that maybe it is an intersection between race and body type. Of
like, they'd be considered pogs.
Exactly.
And that BBW term would never, ever come into play.
Exactly. Women with my same body type and women that are larger than me, they'll be considered pogs and they're celebrated for it. Whereas, you know, they're being celebrated for essentially having the same body type as me.
Yes, exactly.
But there is no term for a woman like me. There is no term for a Black woman built like a Black woman existing as a Black woman. We're just ebony and no one celebrates that. But the pogs are like in right now. And I tell everyone right now, you guys want to call me fat, BBW, chubby, which I will say, I don't think any of those words are bad words. I don't, you know, I just personally don't identify with them. But I tell everyone, if my skin were a different color, I would be a pog and I would be working 5 times as much as I'm currently working now. So, you know, in a way it kind of holds me back, but then in a way it kind of opened up doors too, because when I went to Europe for the first time to shoot in the Czech Republic, I remember the first time I went there, you know, they were kind of nervous about me. They were on the fence because they were like, we've never shot anyone like you before. We don't really have Black women here shooting in Europe. You know, we have a few like Brazilian girls that are going to be darker skinned, but, you know, they're Brazilian. They don't identify as like Black. We don't have Black American girls. Like, so he was like, you know, I don't know. I don't know how this is going to go. I don't know how the European fan base is going to take you because they've never seen someone like you before. So like, we'll see. And, you know, funny enough, it was like by the time he had released my second scene out there, it like broke a website record for like, for like most sold videos in like a 4-day span. Their fan base ate me up. I was an anomaly there where they were like, wow, like we've never seen a Black girl, a thick Black girl, a hardcore thick Black girl, like doing all of the hardcore stuff out here. They'd never seen it before. So it got to the point where they were asking me to come back. Every month they were calling me like, hey, can we fly you out again? Like, we're running out of scenes with you. We're running out of like, we need more content. You know, here in America, there's sometimes pay disparities in what people can charge and what people get paid for. And I don't get as much work because out here they don't shoot ebony as much. But when I go to Europe, I'm one of the highest paid female performers out there. You know, and that audience loved me because they were like, wow. Like, so it kind of works for me depending on circumstances. But you know, it is what it is. That's my whole point in setting out for this too, when I realized like, oh, I can infiltrate mainstream porn and I can change that standard and I can show that women that look like me can perform and can sell and, you know, can have a really, really good, strong fan base, we can do it all. So, you know, I'm trying to kind of open that door for other people eventually, because, you know, not everyone's gonna be a size 0 lighter than a paper bag petite person. You know, no hate to any of these girls. I think everyone is perfect, but you know, I'm working in an industry where the majority of people don't view everyone as perfect. So
you bring up that point, and it's something that both when I've had conversations and then afterwards, just as far as public comments, you know, there are those guys that said similar things. So is Anna Fox. And it's something where, at least in the context of being a woman of color, black woman, I'll say black woman specifically in this case, and really fitting in or finding your niche, so to speak. And, you know, you're absolutely right. When I saw you tweet that, I'm like, BBW, really? That just seems so odd, because I'm thinking Avery Jane will not be on Plumper Pass anytime soon.
Well, funny story about that. The very first porn project I ever did was for Plumper Pass, because so it was before, I think this was before Avery Jane even existed. This was before my porn career, before anything. I had met a photographer that worked for Plumper Pass, and they had asked if they could shoot photos of me. And then I did like a cute little like solo tease.
Interesting.
So yeah, that was like my first foray into porn, where I didn't consider it like porn as much back then, because, you know, I was like, I'm just here to take cute, sexy pictures in lingerie and like do a photo shoot. And like, you know, they wanted to like rub on myself a little. It was solo. So it hadn't registered to me like that was like a legit porn shoot for a legit porn company. But yeah, back then, I want to say 3-4 years ago, I was much heavier. I was considered a petite BBW. And, you know, over the years, I lost some weight and, you know, changed some things about my body, and my body, you know, I grew up, things changed. But I feel like because I am still thick, people still try to place me in that category. But I try to tell them, you know, if people want to consider me a BBW, what happens when award time rolls around and I get a nomination for a BBW award, and say I were to win that? That would be rude. That's I can't, in good conscience, accept any BBW nominations and take away from actual BBW women who are like doing the work, you know? Right. And I think people just, maybe we look different on screen than we do in person. Because like even at Exoticas, I can't even tell you how many people were like, wow, you're tiny. Like you're so tiny. And I'm like, yeah, I'm barely 5 feet tall, and I'm pretty proportionate for being such a short person. I'm not a BBW, you know. I was at one point. I was a petite BBW, but that's just not the case anymore. And I don't know. I feel like people really, really want to try to like push me there. You know, like even the company that titled my scene Chubby Slut Avery Jane, I look through their scenes. I see the other women they shoot. I see the other body types that are very similar to mine and larger than mine not being promoted like that, not being degraded like that. You know, so I kind of have to stand up for myself a lot, but in a way that's still tactful, because again, I try to stress to people like being called fat isn't necessarily a bad thing to me. You know, even them calling me chubby for that scene, I was like, it's a body type. I'm thick. Like, I could consider myself chubby. Like, that's fine. I'm not really upset. But, you know, luckily my fans tried really, really hard for me. And I had fans that were like messaging me on OnlyFans and Twitter. And they were like, listen, while we know like it might not like bother you too much, you know, they were just like, put it into perspective. They did that without your consent. They're not labeling any of the other girls like that. Right. That's clearly them trying to monetize off of like non-consensually degrading you. Like, we care about you. And I was like, you know what? Y'all are right. Like, my initial reaction is to be on the defense and be like, that's fine. That's totally fine. Like, maybe I am chubby. It's not a bad word to me. But then I thought and was like, no, the fans are right. In what world would you ever try to hype up a woman or display a woman in a positive light by calling her chubby?
Right.
You wouldn't do that. You wouldn't try to sell your product and, you know, make the models look good by calling them that word.
Right.
So I had to kind of balance, well, I'm pretty chill and don't care about too much, like, but also the disrespect.
Let me ask you a question on that before we move on to sort of what happened after your trip to Europe. And it's something I just thought of. Do you think maybe that the chubby moniker maybe comes from that stereotypical viewpoint of American Black women that may be pervasive in Europe?
I think so. I think so. You know, again, if I were of any other ethnicity complexion, I would be a pog and people would be going crazy on that and hyping me up. I think it definitely did kind of have to do a little bit with like a racialized aspect of like, you know, because even that studio I shot for, like, I'm probably this was a new studio. This was my first time shooting for them. I'm probably the first person to look like me that they've shot.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, they chose to unfortunately do that, which I nipped that in the bud immediately, sent out some messages. I ended up, funny enough, the world's so small, I actually ended up running into one of the producers like out on the subway while I was in Prague, like 2-3 days after that incident. And so we sat on that subway next to each other and, you know, had a little talk about it. And, you know, I don't know what that was. And of course, no one's going to outright say like, oh, it's because you're Black. But
right.
Again, if I wasn't Black, they would not have titled it chubby. I've never seen that in my life. I've never seen a porno titled that in my life ever, unless it was BBW specific, you know, they're catering to that fetish.
Exactly. Right. So you went to Europe, filmed your scenes, basically said, I hate it here. I need a break.
Yeah.
You went on hiatus. You know, and I saw that, and I have no context what being in the adult industry is on you, mind, body, and soul. But I saw that and I just like I really hope she's okay. Like, I don't know her, I only met her once, but I hope she's okay. I hope she finds the piece that she wants. And then with you now back, you seem a bit more rejuvenated, especially considering like you went home for a while, you know, even though you had troubles with the airport and getting back, that was bananas. But how has the break and maybe this time for reevaluation, with the break and, you know, taking some downtime, stepping away from the industry, did that give you the opportunity to maybe reevaluate the direction that you want to take your career?
Completely. It honestly, the past few months, it was a big shift for me. You know, it kind of made me recontemplate everything, the direction I'm going, what I'm trying to do, like what my career goals are. It definitely also kind of recentered me to kind of just be able to like step out of the industry for a second and view it from a more outside lens, you know, view it from I'm not currently working right now and looking for bookings and kissing ass and like, I'm not on, I'm out. I'm on break. I'm on hiatus. No one has any business hitting me up for anything right now. So now I can clearly just observe from an outside lens and kind of reevaluate my place in this industry. So, you know, I had decided for a bit there that I don't want to shoot for mainstream companies anymore, but I kind of got pulled back into a shoot. You know, there's a very particular crew for a company that hit me up, and I love this director. I love the entire crew. And I straight up told them, I was like, y'all, I decided like 3 days ago that I am done. And here y'all are hitting me up, and like, you know, I can't say no to y'all, because like I'm gonna show up just to like kick it on set and hang out with you guys. So like, I guess I'll take the booking. And you know, that director is someone that I value. I value his existence just like as an amazing human being. And I know that he's a Black man. We have very, very few Black directors in porn, but as one of the Black directors in porn, I do know that he, you know, sticks his neck out for me, and he's doing his best to get me opportunities that I'd never had before. And I did recognize that, and I was like, you know what? Right now, I'm not in a place to fully retire yet. And as much as I get frustrated and have all my little, you know, incidents and stuff like that, and just things that I notice and don't quite like, you know, I've had him and a few other people kind of lay it out for me, where they were like, you know, we know that you feel unappreciated and like you're not getting your, you know, your due diligence to you from this industry. But they were like, you know, just know that like the shoot we have planned for you, it's all about you. Like, we need you here. We want you in this shoot. We don't even care who else is in it. Like, we need you to do this because we believe in you and like want to see you shoot for this site. And, you know, I've had people kind of lay it out for me where they were like, we know it feels like you're working, you should have obtained more than you have yet. But, you know, my friends kind of brought it into perspective of like, I've come so far and I've already done so much, and I'm breaking ground. I'm setting records. I'm like changing up the game for a lot of people. And they were like, you know, maybe you should just like stick it out. If people are coming to you for work, you don't want to turn that down. Because, you know, even during my like 2-month hiatus, I was thinking, I'm off for 2 months. I'm not really posting on Twitter. I'm not reaching out to people for bookings. I'm going to be irrelevant. Everyone's going to forget who I am. Like, that's it. I'm done. But to see so many companies still actively reach out to me and ask me for work and ask me for projects, they were like, don't turn down those paychecks. Don't turn down the work. You know, just keep on doing your thing until you finally reach that place and that career goal you want, to where then you can retire comfortably, you know, without panicking about what's my plan B and C and D and like, what am I doing? And like, you know, the money's not, they were like, just keep up with it and keep the momentum going. But now I'm doing that with fresh perspective. Because, you know, it's really, really easy to get swallowed up into porn. It's not just a career, but it can be a lifestyle too. It's, you know, we do a very untraditional job, so it kind of changes your lifestyle, and you aren't the same person in society as you was before. So it's easy to get swallowed up into the industry because these are a bunch of other people who understand what my life is like now. But I definitely kind of had to have a lot of deep talks with myself about, you know, why are you doing this? Are you doing this to better your life and create a better life for yourself and your family? Or are you doing this to like make friends and get invited to the party and like, you know, be popular? Like what matters here? So, you know, I've re-entered with ease. I'm not putting too much pressure on myself. I'm not stressing myself out anymore. I'm kind of removing myself from a lot of social circles. I am actively trying to not put out any more of my business on social media, because at the end of the day, I also realize that I can speak out about things all I want. I can fight the good fight all I want. You know, I can do what I can to try to protect community, but at the end of the day, it's not a community, it's an industry, and we're all here to work. We're all individual business entities here, you know, trying to compete for sales and monetary attention from, you know, luckily we have a very, very large pool of customers to all kind of split between, but you know, I'm definitely more so focused now on myself and my mental health. And, you know, I can't be successful in porn and simultaneously like fight everyone else's battles. You know, the best I can do is just take care of myself and, you know, keep myself sane, safe, and happy, because that's no one else's priority. That's my sole priority. No one's prioritizing my safety. You know, we're all prioritizing ourselves. We have to. Right. So, you know, definitely coming back from hiatus with a huge shift in what I'm doing and how I'm navigating things.
Understood. Now, you brought up retirement. What does retirement for Avery Jane look like?
You know, honestly, retirement for me would be being financially stable enough through investments. The goal is to make enough money and save up enough money from porn to be able to invest it into other things, invest it into other businesses. At some point, I would like to have my own business. Technically, the porn is my first business. This is a business in itself, but I'm hoping to branch out into some kind of other business. You know, retirement for me would be settling down somewhere, getting a house at some point, you know, and just kind of having free reign to go back to school if I want to go back to school, or start that business if I want to start that business, you know, run away to the circus and do all these crazy circus things that I have to hold back on because, you know, a big part of work too is we can't mark up our bodies too much. You can't, you know, and sadly, a lot of my interests involve marking up my body and like just doing intense stuff. So I'm like, you know, once I retire and don't have to worry about that, I can go back to just doing all this weird stuff that may or may not, you know, mark me up or leave a little scar here and there. And yeah, I don't know. I guess basically that my retirement is just like, I would like to be able to live comfortably and like take care of the people in my life, you know? I'm a big time caretaker. I like to just make sure everyone around me is good. So, you know, I would like to be in a comfortable financial position where, let's say, someone close to me says, oh no, I broke my leg and now I'm out of work for 6 months. I'm going to lose my house. And I could say, oh no sweat. Like, here's 6 months rent, recover, rest, like take care of yourself. For me, that's retirement, is being able to comfortably take care of anyone that I need to at any moment's notice.
Understood. It sounds like very good retirement to me. Now, one last question, maybe it's two-part depending on your answer. I'm assuming, again, I'm not going to ask a lady her age, but I'm assuming you're about mid-20s-ish. So you have grown up during a time where adult content was a lot more available than, say, when I grew up, when I was that age, or at least younger growing up. So I asked this question because I find it very curious. Who were some adult stars that you maybe, I don't know, looked up to would be the word, but you liked it, admired, made you feel a certain way as you were growing up before you got into the industry?
Okay, so I was never the biggest porn watcher. Like, now that I'm in porn, I understand, like, oh, like, there are porn fans. Like, porn has a fandom. There are people who know so much about this, that, everybody. I never really watched porn that much. I'd have my little like 5 go-to videos that I'd like pop up on Pornhub if I needed to like watch porn, but I was never really a big porn person. So even as I like started to enter any kind of adult work, for me, the porn people I looked up to were literally like anyone that I had any type of personal tie to, that I'd like seen in some sort of way in my life. So like, for instance, I was in the BDSM scene for a while, doing a lot of BDSM stuff. And in that scene, there were a few alt performers that I really, really looked up to, which I won't name them now, because that also brings me to that saying where people say, never meet your idols. I've definitely entered that phase of my career where I'm meeting the handful of idols that I had. And it did not turn out the way I would have hoped it turned out. But, there were a few of the hardcore alternative goth kids that were well known in the BDSM scene. So I knew of them from that and was like, oh, like they're porn stars. Like, that's cool. Like, that's neat. I remember when I was working at a strip club, they had a feature dance night with porn star Jenna Hayes. And I think she was like my first legit porn star that I'd ever like met at the strip club. And I remember her being so sweet, so kind. Like, she complimented me. I heard her say something about how like she was in school to get her degree for psychology. And, as someone who didn't know much about porn, I was like, oh, wow, like she's so multifaceted. Like, I don't know what my assumptions were on porn performers, but like, that's pretty cool. And then, I worked at a Hustler store for a while in adult retail. And I remember we had the fleshlight wall with all the fleshlights. And I remember seeing Anna Fox on a fleshlight and was like, wow, like she's gorgeous. Like, I think she was the only Black girl fleshlight we had in stores too. So I was like, she is a dark-skinned woman. Like, she is a dark-skinned Black woman, and she looks like a supermodel, and she was just shining on the cover of that fleshlight. I used to play a game where I would like hide other people's fleshlights behind hers and like make sure hers got like the most action in the store, because I was just like enamored by her. And like now current day we're friends, and I'm just like, I remember when I was looking at you on fleshlights, and like now we talk, like, but I try to, keep it calm, keep it cool.
Right.
And then we had a signing one time with Angela White, and, Angela White is up there too. And I was like, oh, wow. Like, she's talking about the degrees she has. And, I had always been a little fearful of fan interactions with porn stars. Like, I was not sure how that event was going to go with her being in our little store and having a huge line out the door of people coming to meet her. I was like, oh God, like this could be bad. And I'll never forget, like, the way she commanded respect from people, just like with her presence, and the way everyone behaved themselves, and the way she carried herself, just like the energy of the store that day. I remember being like, okay, there's a lot more to this than I would ever assume. Like, these women are all so interesting to me and like multifaceted and just have all these different things going on for them. And they do adult entertainment as well. Like, they're just these bold, interesting, beautiful women. And I want to say like a month after that Angela White signing, I released my first content scene, like my first porno ever. So it's just kind of all these little experiences that I had personally connected to people. And I'm like, I guess those were my idols, because they kind of showed me like, oh, that tired trope of like bimbo porn star, everyone's dumb. You obviously like couldn't do anything else for work, so that's why you do this. I'm like, actually, a lot of these people have like multiple degrees, could do other work, have a whole life set up for them, and then decided I'm gonna do what I want to do. I've met people in the industry that were like engineers making six figures that were like, actually, I prefer porn, and I quit my 6-figure engineer job because like porn makes me better money and I can control my schedule and, I have way more freedom with my time. And I'm like, okay, mad respect for the people that I've like kind of met and experienced along the way that made me feel confident enough to know that I could do it too.
That's a great way to end it. I love that. Avery Jane, thank you very much for your time. Tell everyone out there where they can find you.
Well, my name's Avery Jane. You can find me on Pornhub. Please like and subscribe. I'm also pretty much on every platform. If there's a platform, like I'm there. I'm on OnlyFans. I'm on Loyal Fans. I'm on X videos, I'm on AP clips, I'm on MiniVids, I'm on Sheer. I'm pretty much everywhere. The username is mostly going to be Avery Jane everywhere you go. You can find me on Instagram, Avery Jane Official, and you can find me on Twitter, Avery Jane XO.
And that was my interview with Avery Jane. I actually hope to talk to her again. She's one of those interviews that I feel like, especially with our conversation we had after the fact, I feel like I only scratched the surface of who she is. So I'm really looking forward to talking to her again in the near future. And with that, let's talk about the fragrance of the week. Now, this is a new one to me that I wore for the first time the other day, and I was pleasantly surprised. It is not a fragrance that I would have said I would have really liked if you would have told me the note breakdown before I smelled it, or I should say before I applied it. But it is Vetyverso by Laboratorio Olfattivo. And with this one, you find top notes of bitter orange, nutmeg, and carnation, mid notes of vetiver, grapefruit, and black pepper, and then base notes of clear sage, absolute, white musk, cedar, and sandalwood. And I have to say, I really enjoy the bitter orange and the nutmeg on the top, and a little floral from the carnation. The mid notes are where it really stands out. That vetiver, that grapefruit, that black pepper. It is earthy a little bit, but it's green as well. It's green and fresh, and it's a grassy vetiver. But there is something about that combination with the vetiver and the grapefruit and the black pepper. You get that spice, you get that vibrancy of the grapefruit, and it is just something else. It is so potent, and it's for me, it comes off more of a springtimey scent, but then you have that earthiness with the sage, and then the musk, and then the woodiness of the sandalwood and the cedar. It is a fragrance that, again, I was very surprised that I enjoyed as much as I did. I love a good vetiver note, but the vetiver is so much more complex in this note composition that is vetiver, but it is different, it's changed, it's transformed. I really enjoyed it. I actually am looking forward to probably pulling this back out again in the spring. Like, I can see how this would really work with that late spring, early summer, when it's getting warmer but it's not blazing hot sort of weather. I think it'll be a really good fragrance for that time of year, and it's classified as unisex. I could really see it's going for either or, men or women. It doesn't skew one way or the other, at least to my nose. So that is my take on Vetyverso by Laboratorio Olfattivo. And of course, you're looking for, pretty good fragrances, inexpensive fragrances. I definitely recommend you checking out Pete and Pedro. I've said before how much of a fan I am of their fragrances, especially Villain, their tobacco vanilla, derivative. that is there, as well as you have those in addition to all of their other products, hair care products. I think they're actually doing vitamins now, but check them out. And if you do so, you buy something, use the reference code or the referral code in the link below. You get 10% off your first purchase. And of course, I cannot not stop talking about Basil and Sage and their subscription box. We just got in the September box a little bit late this month, but we'll be seeing a full unboxing and talking about all the products soon. And I'm enjoying this box. Well, I should say I'm going to enjoy this box because there are a lot of everyday sort of items in this box that I'm looking forward to use and test out over the next couple of weeks. But if you're interested in picking up a box for yourself, or even individual box or a full-blown subscription monthly, use the show notes, or use the code, not the show notes, use the code Sartorio and Geek 10 for 10% off your first purchase. Also, make sure you check us out over at W. You're tired of those super sugary, highly caffeinated, well, everything's highly caffeinated really, but carbonated energy drinks. Try W. You can get 10% off your first purchase by using the code WebsterMan. And of course, you know me, Webster Style, the man, the voice of fragrance. I am all around the internet multiple times a week, both here over at Nerds Rule the World. You can find me there twice a week with my man Brian Sapp, talking about the latest news in gaming and the latest games in gaming as well, over at the NRW Checkpoint. And then you will find me over with the legend Kuya P, as well as the man, the voiceover king, Sean Mongold, as part of the NRW's House of Black Trio Championship over at Kayfabe Baby, the NRW Ring Generals podcast, talking about wrestling as much as we can talk about in the time that we have, because we always have too much to talk about and not enough time. But you'll find that every week over at Nerds Rule the World. And of course, you can find me all over the place on social media, Instagram, Webster Style, Sartorio and Geek, Twitter, Webster Style, TikTok _Webster Style. You can find anything and everything that is Webster Style over at websterstyle.com. And if you're so inclined, drop me an email at info@websterstylemagazine.com. Again, I thank you for your time. I thank you for your listening ear. And remember, stay safe out there and be blessed.
And you picked the hella fit for the church day. Let's say you picked the risk game for it. Now you got the floor filled with bras that you purchase. Pick a code scheme that can match your berry corset. Get the berry cream, get the berry cream, get the berry cream. We gon' make a little scene, cause no one man should have all that styling. Take it off, clothes on the floor piling. No one girl should fit it all in them jeans. So take it off and let me see what's under them seams. Cause no one man should have all that styling. Take it off, clothes on the floor piling. No one girl should fit it all in them jeans. So take it off and let me see what's under them seams. And see what it seems. If it is what it seems. Do it again. Not, chicks be looking thick leggings, you know what I mean? I don't know. Take a hint though, don't try to get me at a moment. Mint though, smoking hot, rocking this pin so thin. Tie hairline, looking like a stent so pimp. No lie, I'm sharper than a utensil. Instrumental, plain dang, homie. I was hoping we could walk out with that bang bang, honey. See them plain James, honey. Them lame frames funny. We tell it fit it crazy like that thing came on me. Hey, mommy, look a lady, main thing. Want me on the scene, fit popping like a main vein, running blood color lips, smashing with the hand clutch money, holding back. Kinda funny, can you tell me what's the price tag of the Range Rover? Hang on me when we walking, looking Gucci like that thing sprayed on me. Walking with a limp like an ankle sprained on me. Yeah, I rock the cardigan. She don't really want me because one man should have all that styling. Take it off, clothes on the floor piling. No one girl should fit it all in them jeans. So take it off and let me see what's under them seams. Cause no one man should have all that styling. Take it off, clothes on the floor piling. No one girl should fit it all in them jeans. So take it up and let me see what's under them seams. Hey, let me see. Let me see. Let me see. Aim up and on the middle of my lawn. Aim up and on the middle of my lawn. Cause no one man should have all that styling. Take it off, clothes on the floor piling. No one girl should fit it all in them jeans. So take it up and let me see what's under them seams. Oh, you wanted to? Oh, I completely read that wrong.